holidays, everyone, and welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting for our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. I'm recording this on Christmas Eve, and I will post this on the 26th. And we're looking back at the hot comics from June 26, 2020. I want to thank you guys for a great year and all the support I've gotten with the channel and with this video in particular. We will be taking next week off. Just got some family stuff and some other things, so I'm going to take next week off, but I will be back the second weekend of January doing these look backs. As always, we do this just to try to understand what comics were hot 6 months ago, what were the factors that made them hot then, how they've done since, so we can all learn a little bit about whether or not we should chase books or be patient. And as always, we are looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. They each do a list of 10. Those are the books we're focusing on. This week we got 18 different books. So let's get into the list and see if we can learn anything here on Christmas weekend. So first up, we only had one kind of option-related, TV-related, outside of Marvel and DC book, and that was Invincible #1. This was on the list last week as well, and really no change in price here from what we talked about last week. This was just on opposite lists the 2 weeks in a row. It made the Comic Tom list last week. It made the CBSI list this week. So raw copies were still going $350-ish range back then, $1,000 to $1,200 for 9.8, and now it's still doing $400 or so for raw copies. 9.8 will run you $1,500 plus. So this book is up. It hit the list back then because there was Robert Kirkman said there was a trailer coming. Since then, we've seen the trailer. We know this show is coming. So that's why this book is continuing to be hot. Next, we're going to go into a little bit of gaming spec, I guess. This is Tales of Suspense number 94. First appearance of Modok. And basically, this hit the list because the trailer for the Avengers game, which has now been out for a little while, and people have seen and played, kind of had Modok in a prominent role. I don't know if he was in a prominent role in the actual game. I've heard mixed reviews on the Avengers game. But anyway, that's what caused this book to hit the list, was his being featured prominently in that trailer. Back then, raw copies were averaging around 140. A 9.6 went for $17.50. Now, that was actually the last 9.6 sale, but now raw copies are more $60 to $100 range. Unless it's super high grade, then it goes for close to $200. Super low grade goes for less than $60, but yeah, it's more, on average, it's in that $60 to $100 range. Kind of the highest graded slab that sold recently was an 8.0 that went for $285. So, can't really tell a lot about what's going on with the graded copies, but the raw copies are definitely down. Definitely an I'll be back kind of book. Modok's a good villain, but hasn't really sustained that little hype around that trailer. Next, we're going to move into covers, and we got 2 covers this week is all. First up, we have Star Wars Bounty Hunters number 3, the 1 in 25 Bosk variant. Not a lot of Bosk covers. But this one here, like with him on the cover, was Star Wars fans were chasing it for double ratio at $50 right after release. Now it's going for about ratio to a little bit more in a $20 to $40 range. So another one that's down a little bit, but definitely a solid book. And definitely a cover that people are still buying, just closer to ratio than they were when it first came out. Next, we're going to talk about one hip-hop variant, but really this hit the list. Basically, CBSI put just hip-hop variants on their list, and Comic Tom actually picked one out to put on his list, so we're going to talk about that one rather than all of them. But all of those hip-hop variants got super hot back in the summer. There's some of them are still doing really, really good. It's definitely a trend that's continued. But this one that we're going to focus on this week is Spider-Gwen #1, that hip-hop variant. Back then, it was doing $30 to $40 with 9.8 going for $125. Now it's like a $10 to $25 book. 9.8 still sitting $125-ish, but that's really only one recent sale that's based on. So another one that's down a little bit, but still definitely some interest in these hip hop variants in all forms. I think most of them are down a little bit from that peak over the summer, but still books that people are interested in. With that, we're going to move into Comic Buzz and a lot of Donny Cates. First up, we have Thor number 5, the first full appearance of Black Winter. If you know anything, this got super hot over the summer. It cooled way down, and now it's hot again because Donny Cates has recently said that he wasn't finished with Black Winter. So this comparison is not the best for what's actually happened with this book. At this point, this was right after release. It was going for $15 to $20 for raw copies. Now they're going for $40 to $50. 9.8s are going for $120 to $140. So it is up compared to this week. It is actually this book would continue to climb, get higher than this at one point, and then dropped all the way back down to about where it was at, about to that $15, $20 range, and then it's been climbing again since Donny Cates re-mentioned Black Winter. So this one's been a bit of a roller coaster the last 6 months, but currently, compared to right at release, what people are chasing for, it is currently up. Next, we have 2 more books that are kind of related to that. First is Silver Surfer Black number 4. This is a possible first cameo of Black Winter. There's a figure on the page that looks like Black Winter. They say the name Black Winter. Donny Cates tried to say, oh, that's not really Black Winter, but it kind of looks like it's Black Winter. But anyway, back then this was only going for $5 to $10. Tom put this on the list because it was a 300% increase in sales. Well, Tom and Key Collector did. Now it's a $5 to $10 book still. Occasionally it goes for $1. Occasionally it'll go for $20, but mostly it's a $5 to $10 book. So it's pretty steady right in that same range. 9.8 will run you $50 to $80 on this guy. So this has been pretty steady. A little more than cover for a raw book. 9.8, a little more than grading costs plus the cost of the book. Next, we have Thor number 4, which is definitely a cameo of Black Winter. And this one was also going for $5 to $10 range with a 300% increase in sales. And this one's still $5 to $10. 9.8 on this one actually go for a little less, more $40 to $50, so just barely more than grading plus the cost of the book. But it's also been pretty steady. So unlike Thor 5, these two have actually been pretty steady over the last 6 months, whereas Thor 5 has been a bit of a roller coaster. Next, more Cates, and this is Venom number 3, the third print, this is the third print of his first appearance, plus I think his second cover appearance, but also a cover appearance on his first appearance. So anyway, this has been a hot book. The King in Black storyline's going on right now. Everybody's been chasing Null. Back then, raw copies would run you $150 to $175. 9.8s were going for $400. Now it's $250 to $300 for a raw copy. 9.8s are going $450 to $550-ish. So this one is up, but we are right in the middle of the King in Black story, so there's no real surprise there. So the build up to this story has been going on for a while, and so this book is definitely not dropped back because of that. Next, we're going to move into the Comic Buzz that doesn't have anything to do with Donny Cates. And this is Immortal Hulk number 12. And this hit the list because there was a solicitation for a one-shot that was coming that was going to focus on Brian Banner, who's Bruce's father, but also in the employ of the One Below All. So that kind of caused this book to spike because this was the first appearance of Brian Banner and the One Below All, I believe. Back then, this jumped back up to a $30 book. 9.8s were going for $115. And now it's a $20 to $30 book, $75 to $100 for 9.8. So it's down a little bit. Definitely a lot of interest still in this Immortal Hulk run and in these characters, but just down a little bit from where it was 6 months ago. With that, we're going to move into another book that was on the list last week, and that is Static number 1, the first appearance of Static, and this had everything to do, again, with the announcement that Milestone Comics was coming back, that DC was bringing them back. And so back last week when we talked about it, it had jumped up to a $25 book. Now, by this week, it was a $30 to $40 book, and that's basically where it's at right now. It's $30 to $40. Occasionally it'll go for $50, $60, but for the most part it's ranging in that $30 to $40 range, which is actually down a little bit. When I looked it up last week, it was still sitting about 40, and now it's sitting 30 to 40 for most of the sales. 9.8 on this will run you 2 to 400. It had been pretty steady in the $300 to $400 range, but the last several sales have been closer to 200. So it has definitely been creeping back down. The interest in this has waned a little bit. I'm sure once we get an official announcement and solicitations for those milestone comics, this will probably jump again. So this one overall has been pretty steady. It got higher than what it was when I hit the list here, and it's just slowly kind of crept back down, but it's been pretty steady over the last 6 months. Definitely kind of an all-be-back book. Next is Justice League number 50, and this hit the list because it's the first appearance or mention of the three Jokers, and this had everything to do with there being an official release date for the three Joker series. That has come and gone. Back then, this was going for $10 to $15. Now it'll go 10 to 25. I don't know if that has anything to do with the three Jokers. That story, personal opinion, that story was not very good in my opinion. I was definitely disappointed by that. But I also think there's a lot more buzz about this book now because it's also the first appearance of Jessica Cruz as Green Lantern. So I think there's been a little bit of the combo buzz that's kept the value on this in that 10 to 20-ish range. 9.8, so running a 100 to 115. So kind of has two key factors about it, and that's kind of kept it going pretty good and made it be pretty steady over the last 6 months, despite the story maybe being a bit of a disappointment. Next, we're going to move into some DC movie spec kind of news, and this is Batman, the official movie adaptation. And this had everything to do with rumors and speculation that Michael Keaton had signed on for the Flashpoint movie that they were talking about, that he was going to play some older version of Bruce Wayne. Personal aside, this whole thing about bringing back all these Batman, bringing back the Spider-Man that they're talking about, I could do without it, but whatever. Anyway, so this had everything to do with it. Michael Keaton was signing on to do this, or the rumor that he was, and caused this dollar bin book to jump up to a $30 book. No, a $20+ book. Sorry, I looked at the wrong line on my little sheet here. It was going for 20+ back then. Now it's going 5 to 15, so it's still up from where it was, but definitely crept back down a little bit. 9.8 will run you $75, $100. So down a little bit, but not still going for more than those dollar bins that it used to be in. Next, we have two more books related to that. We have Flashpoint number 1, which is the first appearance of Thomas Wayne as Batman, and that has everything to do with the spec that Michael Keaton was going to come back, but he wasn't actually going to play like his version of Batman that he played before. He was going to play Thomas Wayne because it was a Flashpoint movie. And basically, so that had this book jumping up to $30. 9.8s were going for $200. And this was sustained pretty good. It's still going 10 to 30. So the raw copies are down, which is what most of the sales are, but the 9.8s are still going for around $300. Now that's based on basically 3 sales recently, but still holding pretty steady there. So down on the raw copies, but actually up on the 9.8s. There's just not a lot of those. And then our next book is Flashpoint number 1, the SDC San Diego Comic-Con variant, exclusive variant, and same reason that the first Thomas Wayne. This one was also going for 30-ish bucks back then, and now it's actually a $20 to $60 book. So it actually will occasionally go for 40, 50, 60 bucks. Most of the sales are in that $20, $30 range. But yeah, so this one, I would say this one's actually up probably a little bit just because of on average. 9.8, there's only been 4 sales. Very interestingly, those 4 sales have went for $50, $100, $150, and $200. So I don't know what to tell you about the value for that. And they've been like, I think the most recent one was $50. The one before that was $200. Then it was $150 and $100. So it's kind of like, that's all in the last 3 months. So yeah, this book's been a little all over the place. But it's still commanding pretty good value. With that, we're going to move into MCU spec and news. We only got 3 books left, I think? 4 books left. First up, we have Daredevil number 9. This is also on the list for the second week in a row, and this had everything to do with the casting call for a character that sounded an awful lot like Echo. This is the first appearance of Echo. We now know Echo has been cast, so this book had crept back down. It's back up. Back then, it was going for $40 to $50 as compared to last week when it was around a $20, $25 book when we talked about it. 9.8s were going for $175. Now it's a $30 to $60 book, so a little bit more variance, but still in that same range. 9.8s will run you $200 to $300. So I'm going to call this one pretty steady over the last 6 months. It kind of crept down. It's crept back up because of that we got official news that Echo is coming. Definitely a book that would have been worth keeping your eye on and trying to snag when it was down a little bit there in between. Next, we have Ghost Rider number 2, the second cameo of Damien Hellstrom. And this had to do with the announcement that there would be a panel at San Diego Comic-Con about the Hellstrom show that was coming to Hulu. If you know anything about that, that show kind of bombed. They've already canceled it, so there won't be a second season. This spec didn't really pan out very well, but back then raw copies were going for an average of $155, and 9.6 was going for $600. Now raw copies will run you $20 to $100 depending on condition. So definitely down on raw copies, which is most of the sales. No 9.6 sales recently, but 9.4s will still run you $400 to $500. So it hasn't really, the graded copies haven't really dropped very much in value. Still a solid book, solid character, that show didn't actually pan out for much. Next, we have X-Men number 193. This is the first appearance of Firestar in continuity. And this basically had rumors that she was going to be one of the X-Men that was going to be an early entrant into the MCU. Caused this book to jump up to $20. 9.8 is going for $180. And then this one has also crept back down. I think Firestar I remember from a kid when I watched that Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, so has a warm place in my heart, a little nostalgia with Firestar, but now it's a $10 to $15 book. 9.8 will run you $125 to $150. So another kind of I'll be back type book where, a little patience, and you kind of got it for a little bit less. And then finally, our last book of the week is Amazing Spider-Man number 4, the first appearance of Silk. Back then, raw copies were going for 100 plus, 9.8s were going for 250. And that's basically what we're looking at now. This book has been super steady over the last 6 months. 80 to 150 on raw copies. Depends on the auction, depends on the sale, and the condition, obviously. But you can snag one occasionally for around 80. Sometimes they go for as much as 150. It jumps back and forth. 9.8s are running 180 to 250-ish range. So definitely pretty steady on this one. So that is this week's list. Again, want to wish everybody some happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah if that's what you celebrate. Happy New Year. And we will see you in 2021. Thanks for watching, everybody.